In the late 1930s, the Soviet armed forces primarily relied on two main tank lines, the T-26 and the BT Bystrokhotny tank series. The T-26, designed mainly to support infantry, stood out for its simple operation and effectiveness in close combat. On the other hand, the BT series, featuring the unique Christie suspension system, could move flexibly on both tracks and wheels, offering high speed on land, especially in mobile operations. This was a significant advantage, aligning with the Soviets' deep operations strategy, where rapid occupation of vast areas was crucial. However, in real-world conflicts, particularly in the Spanish Civil War and the border battles with Japan at Lake Hassan and Khalkhin Gol, the weaknesses of both the T-26 and BT became apparent. The thin armor of these tanks was insufficient to withstand modern anti-tank weapons, making them vulnerable to destruction in fierce battles. Moreover, their gasoline engines, prone to catching fire, posed a serious threat to the survival of armed units. These experiences highlighted the need for a new generation of tanks that combined the mobility of the BT series with the better armor protection and stronger firepower. The A-20 tank project emerged in this context as a new step in the development of the BT-7, aimed at addressing the shortcomings of earlier models and meeting the growing demands on the battlefield. The A-20 tank, one of the prominent models in the Soviet development phase, featured notable specifications as outlined in test and approval documents. The tank measured 5.7 meters in length, 265 meters in width, and 236 meters in height, with a weight of 18 tons. The A-20's crew consisted of 4 members, one more than the standard 3-man crew of the BT-7, reflecting a change in the layout of tasks within the turret or hull. This allowed for the separation of the roles of the commander and gunner, with the additional crew member potentially handling ammunition loading or operating the machine gun. In terms of armor, the A-20 was initially equipped with 20mm thick armor, which was reinforced to 25mm following testing. The front and floor armor were improved with angling, with the final requirements being a 25mm thick front armor and a 15mm thick floor. The primary armament of the A-20 was a 45mm gun, likely the model 1938 20K, along with the 2 DT 7.62mm machine guns as secondary armament. Although the recorded ammunition load in the test documents was 160 rounds for the gun and 300 rounds for the machine guns, this may not accurately reflect the actual ammunition load when the tank was deployed. The A-20 was equipped with a V2 diesel engine, delivering 500 horsepower, allowing the tank to reach a maximum speed of 75 kilometers an hour on its wheels. Its operational range varied between 350 and 400 kilometers, enabling extended mobility for long-term operations. The tank was also capable of overcoming obstacles such as a maximum slope of 40 degrees, a 2.4 meter wide trench, and a 1.2 meter water crossing, demonstrating its versatility across various terrains. Compared to earlier models, the A-20 showed significant improvements in weight and armor protection. A comparison between the A-20, BT-7, and A-32 revealed that the A-20 was heavier than the BT-7, 18 tons versus 14 tons, and had stronger armor, 20 to 25 millimeters versus 22 millimeters on the BT-7. The A-20's maximum speed of 75 kilometers an hour on wheels was similar to the BT-7. However, the A-20 began to feature characteristics closer to those required for a modern combat tank, with its hybrid wheel track mobility system and enhanced armor, laying the foundation for the development of later models like the A-32 and T-34. The development of the A-20 tank began in late 1937 at the Kharkov Locomotive Factory, KHPZ, which had extensive experience in producing BT series tanks, particularly in using the Christie suspension system and advanced technologies for engines and transmissions. Engineer Mikhail Koshkin, head of the design bureau at KHPZ, was tasked with developing a replacement for the BT series tanks, with the initial requirement to create a drivetrain that could switch between tracked and wheeled modes. This design continued the tradition of the BT tanks, aiming to maximize flexibility, allowing the tank to move both on paved roads with wheels across and rough terrain with tracks. The A-20, after being approved in May 1938, featured several significant improvements over the BT-7 model, with one of the key highlights being the use of sloped armor on the front and sides of the hull, enhancing its bullet resistance, a crucial step toward the development of modern tank designs. The A-20's mobility system regained the combination of wheels and tracks seen in earlier BT models. However, this system caused several mechanical issues, including the complexity of switching between the two movement modes and increased wear on parts. Notably, the powerful V2 diesel engine, while improving the vehicle's performance, put considerable strain on the already complicated drivetrain of the wheeled tracked system. Alongside the development of the A-20, Koshkin and his design team at KHPZ also worked on another tank model called the A-32, a purely tracked design that completely eliminated the wheeled tracked conversion system. The A-32 featured several notable improvements over the A-20, including thicker armor and a more powerful gun, with a simpler and more efficient design that enhanced its mobility. Test trials conducted in the summer of 1939 revealed that the A-32 had a comparable mobility to the A-20, but did not suffer from the mechanical issues associated with the A-20's complex drivetrain. The A-32 also demonstrated that removing the conversion system did not reduce its mobility. On the contrary, it made the vehicle more durable and easier to maintain. The results of these trials led to a pivotal decision. The development of the A-32 would form the basis for the legendary T-34 tank. While the A-20 did not succeed in becoming a mass-produced tank, its development and testing provided valuable data that significantly contributed to the creation of the T-34, one of the most important tanks in military history. Although the A-20 project was abandoned, the lessons learned from it continued to influence tank design throughout the Great Patriotic War and beyond. Although prototypes of the A-20 were manufactured and extensively tested with a total testing distance of 4,200 kilometers, mass production of this tank was not carried out. In September 1939, the main Automobile and Armored Directorate, ABTU, ordered Factory Number 183 to produce a pilot batch of 15 A-20 tanks by January 1, 1940, and to address the issue discovered during testing while reinforcing the armor. However, there is no documentation confirming that this batch of 15 tanks was completed. Despite the factory's ability to produce prototypes within the required timeframe, by the end of 1939, with a priority shift towards the T-34 programs and general production difficulties, the completion of the A-20 batch was highly unlikely. The factory's resources were largely directed to the T-34 program, which had higher priority. Nevertheless, at least one A-20 prototype did see combat. This vehicle, after being transferred from the Kubinka testing grounds, was deployed to the 22nd Tank Brigade of the Red Army in November 1941 during the defense of Moscow against Nazi Germany's Operation Typhoon. The deployment of a unique prototype, not up to standard and likely to face logistical challenges, reflects the severe equipment shortages the Red Army faced at this time. The A-20 was deployed around November 28, 1941 in the Pavlovskaya Slobodava area, alongside T-34, T-30 and T-50 tanks within the brigade's composition. Although there are no detailed records of the A-20's actions, the brigade was in a defensive position, and other tanks, such as the T-50, participated in combat, making it likely that the A-20 also saw action. The fate of the combat-deployed A-20 remains unclear. Some speculate that the vehicle may have been abandoned to the deployment site and later scrapped in the 1990s. Other prototypes may have remained at Kubinka or been dismantled during or after the war. There is no evidence to suggest that any A-20s has survived to the present day.